My name is Darren Matthews. I'm one of the primary advisory teachers here at CLPE, and the book that I wanted to talk to you about today is this beautiful debut picture book, Leaf, that was written and illustrated by Sandra Dieckmann. Back when this was published in 2017, it was chosen for our Planning the Curriculum Around the Text course for lots of reasons, but partially for its beautiful, powerful lyrical language, for its huge emotional resonance, and for its wonderfully detailed and evocative illustrations. We're trying to choose books for that particular course where all of those elements are in place, and then beyond that it provides so many rich, meaningful opportunities to develop children's language, both within their English lessons and beyond that across the entire curriculum. And this was particularly aimed at children in Key Stage 1. It's the story of a polar bear who comes to be known as Leaf, who at the start of the story finds himself washed up on an unfamiliar shore in a land that he doesn't know, and where, importantly, the other animals don't know him. He arrives as a stranger and unknown, and partially because of that, the other animals immediately ignore, fear, and isolate him. And the story is largely one of eventual hope, with the community coming together to support the stranger who needs certain things from them, who needs shelter and warmth and companionship. There's something that we found to be really special about this book, both in terms of the language choices and in terms of the illustration. There is so much to look at in every spread. It really is a book that both as an adult and as a child you can get completely lost in the world that Sandra's created in putting this book together. She manages to convey the isolation of Leaf, both through those very careful choices she makes as an author, but also the deeper, almost metaphorical levels in which the illustration can be read. If we take a look at just one of the illustrations, because we don't have time to go through all of it, the opening spread is a lovely example of this. Immediately your eye is drawn to this isolated figure of Leaf, and look at how she's used body language to build immediate empathy, with the head bowed, this dot of white against a dark blue and black ocean, the jagged rock formations. You get this idea that Leaf, this polar bear, is alone in a hostile and unusual environment. The realism of both the crow, which takes up a huge amount of space on the spread, and Leaf's depiction, contrasting with this almost exotic tropical plant life, which again feels unfamiliar and strange to us if we're thinking about where we imagine polar bears might exist, what sort of contrast she's creating here. And then that isolation of Leaf in this world is echoed in the language. Crow saw it first, and that very deliberate choice. Crow didn't see a bear, crows didn't see a polar bear floating along there. Crow saw it first, the strange white creature carried upon the dark waves towards the shore. And the polar bear is completely disempowered. It's not the polar bear desperately trying to reach shore, but just carried there upon the waves. We see things immediately from Crow's point of view, who sees Leaf as the other, as the unknown, as the stranger almost invading the land. And we continue to see the story from Crow and the other animals' point of view as we read through. And we find that what might initially seem like a strange choice to make the crow so big and such a major part of the composition of the page becomes much more important as we read through, and we see the role the crow has to play in Leaf's story. This is a book that will immediately prompt rich discussion and debate amongst any group of children that are given the pleasure of reading it. They immediately empathise with Leaf, they understand his situation, they understand the unfairness of the situation, even if we might briefly think, well, actually, he's arrived on this island. Are we surprised that the other animals are scared of him? He's arrived as an apex predator, so maybe we'll have our science brains on and think, oh, okay, we understand why they're scared. But at the same time, we see constantly Leaf denied the rights of shelter, of warmth, of companionship, and really importantly of not having his voice heard, which becomes a really crucial part of the story, that things are resolved when finally the other animals decide to listen to Leaf, to find out what his story is, to ask him questions and to understand his place amongst them and in the wider world. And that's when really they can go on to support him and help him find his way home. It's a really heartwarming story, and as I've said, beautifully illustrated, and I hope that you get a chance to share it with the children that you work with.